Good afternoon. I'm Master Sommelier Emmanuel Comigi, and on this episode of Across the Table from Movers and Shakers, I have as my guest a dear friend who has been responsible for a number of high-profile restaurants in New York and San Francisco. He is one of the most talented chefs I know. Meet Laurent Manrique.
Hello, my friend.
Laurent,
Thank you.
great.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Ah, question.
Shoot.
Who or what was your earliest culinary experience that you can remember?
Oh, that's so easy. That was my grandmother, and I'm sure you heard this answer so many times. But I had a chance to grow up in a table of the kitchen of my grandmother, who was running the cafe in the southwest of France, in a village where I grew up, Roques. You've been there.
Yes,
you
beautiful
know?
village.
Yeah, tiny village, only 28 people. And she was running the cafe, and she's the one who inspired me to cook. And I was, since 14 years old, I always wanted to be there. And of course, later on in my career, great chef inspired me, and
Sure.
really. But she really was the first one who gave me the pleasure and passion about cooking.
What was her name?
Aurélie.
Aurélie. Okay.
Yes, Aurélie. Yes.
So, I know you worked at a number of, with a number of great chefs and well-known restaurants, including the legendary Taillevent, the 3-star in Paris. You know, we hear these stories about apprenticeships in these kitchens, like a military school. What was it? What was it really like?
It was. It's actually, it's not great memory. What I'm thinking about, because after reflection, you think that's the only way to get abused and hours and the yelling, and you only create more terror than pleasure.
Okay.
So I understand. I think in this job, like any other job, I believe on discipline and routine and the gesture all the time. For that you need some certain discipline. But I think during many years, not only France, but France, Italy, Spain, England, you have an abuse of this discipline. Almost like the chef had his agenda. He said, "Hey, I want to push these employees so far away, then if he really like it, he's going to stick around. But he need to suffer." And things changing, but at the time that was not necessary at all, because I saw a lot of my colleagues quit, and I'm sure in 2 days they will have a successful career, and they will be great mentoring for young people now, and they quit because they couldn't take the pressure.
Yeah. Chef, if you're going to say a chef that has had the most influence on you.
Well, I would say the chef from my first chef from Marcanti ship was Roger Dufour.
Okay.
Relais de l'Armagnac, where I was, during the apprenticeship, where, his first day when I arrived in a restaurant, he had a long table full of big Marie-Jeanne of Armagnac. Marie-Jeanne is like this big pot of Armagnac,
bottles, yes.
and it was probably like 40 different ones. And I was doing a tour of the kitchen, but before go to the kitchen, he said, "Do you know Armagnac?" And that was for me a big revelation, because for him it was like, to be a chef, you not only have to know how to cook, but you need to have a developing palate and wine. And he started to open some bottle of Armagnac, and he said, "What do you smell? What are you smelling?" And I was like, I don't know, prunes. And he really introduced me to the sense of cooking is not only about flavor, it's about everything, So that was the first lesson, and every day was a new lesson. So he introduced me to the world of food. Versus later, I think Mr. Vrina in Taillevent and Claude Deline, who was executive chef, they introduced me to the high hand, the 3 Michelin star, the discipline, and what he was to work in a brigade where you have like 50 people, garde manger, poissonnier, the whole thing. That was a different thing.
Now, you had the first 2-star Michelin in San Francisco at Aqua.
2005.
Yeah.
Yes.
A while back.
Yes.
And here we are today at one of my favorite bistros in San Francisco, Cafe La Presse,
Thank you.
which you run. So, two completely different, opposite extremes of gastronomy, right? So, talk briefly, rewards, satisfactions, difficulties between one and the other.
Well, I think, you know, as a chef, you're always gonna looking for recognition and accomplishment. And for us at the time, you know, fine dining room, Aqua, it was a seafood restaurant. Michelin, everybody thought the Michelin guy would be only in France. As a chef, that's a big recognition. You know, that's a brand among colleagues, but also with the world. You know, and when the Michelin came in San Francisco, we got a 2-star. It was like, wow. But the first reflex, he said, we're gonna work hard for the first star. And I was at the point in my career and my private life, go through a lot of up and down, and you know, I couldn't spend a lot of time with my first son because I was driven by my career.
Right.
And my second son was younger. I said, you know, I think you're gonna make some choice because what's the sacrifice you have to do to get a 3-star? How much time you want, and life is just after 3-star, you're gonna want to keep the 3-star, and it's gonna be more pressure. And at the end of the day, I made the decision. I said, I had a test of what he was. Now let's do something else. Let's open a French restaurant, bistro, casual, and to be honest, you know, profitability. You know, a casual restaurant is more profitable than a fine dining. You know, and I was able to do other projects like making wine with you, for example, or open different concept because, you know, that's the great thing about a career. You know, you have a lot of diversity. Now, I have tremendous respect to my colleague who continue to do fine dining. I think it's important. You want to have a restaurant like that. But you know, I think it's a question of personality, point of view, what they want to do in life.
So, favorite restaurant in the U.S. that's not yours, and favorite in Europe? 1 and 1.
Okay, U.S. Le Bernardin.
Yeah.
Of course.
Eric Reaper's
Yeah.
amazing seafood restaurant.
Well, he's one of my oldest friends. I'm the godfather of his son. He's the godfather of my son. So we go far well. But even without that, I think, you know, he brought a level of high-end restaurant and seafood. And from day one, through the creator of Le Bernardin, Gilbert Lecoz, and his sister Maggie, before Eric was involved, he always said, the fish and 1 sauce and 1 vegetable. We talk about that in 1990. Yeah. Now, everybody put broth on the table, everybody had this philosophy. But at the time, he understood let's study the product, let's find the best fish, and let's study how you're gonna cook the fish. As this fish reacted that way and that way. Plus Maggie presence on the floor, the service, and of course you have Daniel, Jean-Georges, Thomas Keller, you know,
yeah.
but
a
million restaurants. And in Europe, I think it's based on my experience. I think one of my great experience was the weekends Alain Ducasse in Monaco. You know, I had a dinner outside the terrace where for me was a discovery of the Mediterranean cuisine, other than what you've been known as a chef, you travel, you know. But it was the whole thing, you know, that eating in a restaurant like that make you realize, you know, it's from the moment you open the door, the hostess, the quality of the linen, the floor. It was
the
like
setting, which is amazing.
The setting was a ballet and the cart coming with the whole shebang, you know, and the wine list. And at the time, the sommelier, I'm sure you know him, he's Frédéric,
Yes,
you know,
sure.
Frédéric who came, who was a sommelier at the time, and and he looked at the menu. He said, he could have offered me a Bordeaux or a Bourgogne. No, he said, I have a great Domaine de Trévalon. Well, for me, it's the wine I didn't know.
Right.
And it was like the perfect combination. I said, wow, that's a full experience.
One of the hidden gems of southern France.
Exactly.
We have this bottle of Orel's.
The best wine you will find in the United States. Yes.
So this is, of course, a project that you and two good friends of ours,
Gerald and Sylvain.
Sylvain Portet,
Yes.
who was from Louis Kahn.
Yes, absolutely.
And Gerald, who's at Piperot here in San Francisco. So you've gotten involved here back in 2003. So quickly, how was that experience? How is that experience of getting involved as a chef in a winery?
Well, thank you for that. Also, actually, as a chef, one of the things we talked about earlier is like when I decide to do something else, you know, as a chef, you always dream to make wine. Why? Because wine from the outsider, you know, when you inside, you know, every year is a new adventure. Every single year, no matter if the fifth element was the man, right? Try to control things, but the weather is a major impact, the soil is a major impact, everything, you know, and every year you have a new product. Right. So as a chef is always something you wanted to do, and the way it came out, Gerald and I, we used to have a weekly lunch or daily lunch, you know, and we always said, hey, let's make some wine one day, and we, when we tried to look in California, it was too expensive, and you knock on the door, and at the time, you already had an involvement with wine, with Mura, and you were a good friend of Gerard, and when you told us, hey, I have this big adventure in Spain, and said, let's go for it. So it's been a lot of fun. I mean, to see how the winery was starting and planning the first trip to Arels, to the village, and meet the people over there, Marucha and Ramon, and when we did the opening, and it was like that was a lot of fun. But that we get the fun part, you get the hard part.
Well, I get the hard part, but having you and Gerald and Sylvain, I have to tell you, has been one of the more rewarding projects, and I think a lot of the success of Clos Bisaga and Arel's being part of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is because of you guys and the passion and commitment that you all bring.
Yeah, it's fun. In our industry, I think doesn't matter if you're a sommelier, if you're butcher, if you're chef, restaurateur. We love whatever we love to do is sharing wine and sharing food. So what's the most rewarding when you open your product, even if it's you don't know one who make that, but
you're part of it.
You're part of that. They say, hey, I'm so proud, and from the first one you did, in 2003, for what we have now is like 360 degrees, and you told us, believe me, I have a vision, I want to, it's going to be like that, and on the beginning, what Emmanuel is talking about, and now look what we have, and it came with the Clos Pisari and the other wine, and the white one we did, and anything, it's a great product.
Well, and part of it, I think from my point of view, and to thank you and the rest of the partners, is that you were patient and you weren't, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? You understood that it was something that a long creative process, and we wanted to make it.
Yeah.
We didn't want to compromise the quality.
No, and also, honestly, I'm a restaurateur chef. Gerard is. He's not a winemaker. We never said, okay, let's drop everything within the career to become a winemaker, because the winemakers are hard. You were the professional, and then we knew, okay, well, this is gonna be for us in retirement when we open some wine. We can say to our children, hey, I remember that. That's the beauty of the wine. I think we knew from the beginning that's not gonna be like what do we call the bread and butter. Right? It's more passion than a job.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your
Yes.
friendship and,
Yeah,
and
oh, my
bring-
pleasure, my
what
pleasure.
you bring to
Yeah.
to Arel's and everything else.
And to more wine to drink.
Yeah.